It's another overdue video. Oh no. Hi everyone, it's Jenny. Welcome back to my channel. I know, it's almost August. Oh! And actually this might go out in August, so who knows. I am very aware, in short, that we are over halfway through our reading year. Oh my goodness. But I'm here to do one of my favourite videos, which is the best books of the year so far. Ooh, so I picked 10 books, nice round number. Gonna try it and not be too gushing about them in case they make the end of the year video, but we'll see what makes the cut. But I'm going to go through in the order that I've read them, so let's do this. The first book is Heads of the Coloured People by Nafisa Thompson Spies. It's a short story collection. I feel like I might have mentioned this in a wrap up already. I know I've not been very good at doing this, but we'll ignore that fact. But this is a very clever short story collection that deals with being black in America in a supposedly post-racial society, and it looks at the middle class particularly, and there's some stories that are very satirical and darkly funny. My favourites are probably Belle Lettre, which is about two mothers writing quite snarky notes to each other of increasing aggression through their daughters who go to school with each other, and it's this great face-off and desperation to prove credentials and that kind of thing. But then you also have stories about not feeling like you fit into the black community and about authenticity and that kind of thing. It's just a really modern, witty piece of writing, and I'm very excited to see what she writes next. Then I have a poetry collection, which I feel like I read last year because time's elastic right now. Don't know what this is. Elasticity! Woo! Anyway, this is The Perseverance by Raymond Antrobus, who is a British Jamaican poet. He is deaf, and a lot of the poems deal with that, but the actual titular poem, The Perseverance, was definitely one of my favourites, and it's the name of a pub, and it's about his relationship with his father and waiting outside for his father while he's in the pub. And it's partly dealing with his relationship with his father and the grief over his death, but also about the history of deafness and language, and it was just so interesting to read about this duality of language and deafness, and then also about his biraciality. There's so much about identity in this book, and his next collection is coming out in September, and I'm very excited about it. So it's just really clever poetry. I loved it. Then what might possibly be my favourite book of the year so far. This is Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, which I read for the Irish Readathon, and oh my goodness, is this good. And I heard the title but didn't actually know what it was about, and it's a memoir of Frank McCourt, who was born in Brooklyn and moved back to Limerick during the 1930s with the Great Depression, and it's about his family's struggle for survival in the slums of Limerick while having an alcoholic father, and talking about his family and his siblings and that kind of thing. And it was just so beautifully written because it's so Irish. It's got that perfect balance of tragedy and comedy, which is really synonymous with their history, the way that it's really bleak but at the same time there's such an interesting community and so many funny characters that it doesn't feel depressing to read. And it's also just a fascinating historical book because it's such a bygone time of this capturing the 30s and going into the 40s as well. So he starts out as a boy and then goes, I think it's from 4 to 16, and it ends, actually no, I mustn't tell you how it ends. Ridiculous, I would never spoil you like that, but it's a wonderful book, so beautifully written. Definitely want to read the next one, though it isn't as famous, but I would still like to read it. Okay, there's that one. And then, wait, have I missed one? No, I'm on track. This is Mary Oliver poetry. I've got the first volume, but I've lent it out, so this is the second volume. This represents her poetry because I've only recently discovered her. I read her poem Wild Geese last year, and that was the first poem I'd ever read by her, and now I'm just obsessed. She's my favourite poet. She just writes nature poetry, which sounds really simple and boring, but honestly it's the most exquisite poetry I've ever read, and it's so much just about the beauty in everyday simple things and noticing little things in nature and being present in those moments when you're outside, and it's just so nice. And there are moments I just gasp at how beautifully written it is. I would want to read everything written by her now. Oh, so good, so good. Then I have a real booktube favourite. This is The Heart's Invisible Furores by John Boyne, which I read in March as well, because Irish books are just the best, guys. They're just the best. And this is about Cyril Avery, a boy who was adopted and is constantly reminded by his family that he's not a real Avery. And it starts in the 40s, goes up to pretty much modern day, if I remember rightly. And he is a boy who was given up by his mother because she was 16 and not married. The shame. And it's a lot about him, well, really living his life and grappling with his homosexuality, the shame of that comes with living in quite a Catholic country. It's just, it's such a beautifully crafted book, and it's long, but it's such a wonderful journey, and I just cared about Cyril so much, and that's what I really love in a book. And the way it shows different kinds of families and the dysfunctionality of people is just so tender and so beautifully written. And actually I think it's only the second adult novel I've read by him, so I know he's got a huge back catalogue, and it made me really want to check out more of his books. So if you have a recommendation for another book by John Boyne I should read next, let me know. The next book was so good, and it is a modern classic. It is Passing by Nella Larsen. I'm sorry, I know I speak quickly. What can I say? I'm Irish. But this is about two women, Irene and Claire, and it deals with the idea of passing as white when you're black. And Claire is the one who has crossed over to the other side and severed ties with the black community, and she has married a white man who's hella racist, and it's a little bit uncomfortable to read, but it's okay because it's relevant to the book. And she, out of the blue, makes contact with Irene, the other woman, who is very much ingrained in Harlem, in this black community, and is married, a black man, has a family. And it's a lot about how Claire feels the draw of that community, of wanting to go back to Harlem, wanting to go back to a community where she can really be herself, but how that threatens Irene's world as well, and their complex relationship. It was just so thrilling. The ending is incredible. I wasn't expecting it. It was really breathtaking, and it's short, but it's so impactful, and such an interesting idea and exposition of race in that time. The next book I do have, but again have lent out, so it is Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. Oh my goodness, maybe this is my favourite book of the year. I don't know, but it was flipping good, you guys, because it is about Willis Wu, a man who is living in this kind of set, like movie set, for this TV show called Black and White, which has a black male cop and a female white cop, and he wants to work his way up the scale of roles from generic Asian man to kung fu guy. So it's so much about Hollywood stereotypes and Asian stereotypes, and how it's hard to better yourself and put yourself in a better position within the industry, but while also not being able to resist the stereotypes that white people place upon them. And the whole cop duo as well is also heavily stereotyped. It's very funny, it's very tongue-in-cheek, but I just love the way it's written. It has long sections that are written like a script, and there are flashbacks for Willis Wu's parents and to give them context and build up a background, but again it's written like a scene. And I just thought the way he played with form in this novel was so clever, and this desire to escape from this trap of just being boxed in and having such few opportunities to express yourself and just to be authentic as well was so cleverly done. And yeah, I just highly recommend it. In a similar vein to Andrew's Ashes, I have A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. This was, you guys, such a lovely read. It focuses on Francie Nolan, but it also deals with her family. So she has a brother and then also her parents. The reason it particularly struck me being parallel is partly because of the Brooklyn setting, because Andrew's Ashes starts there, and both of them have an alcoholic father who is Irish. So it starts when I think she's 13 and it's kind of at the turn of the century, so it's quite an interesting time. I think it starts in 1911 or something like that. It's early 20th century, and then goes up into the Second World War when she's a young woman, and she's such a wonderful character because it captures the childishness while also dealing with how she has to be responsible and has to grow up and work so quickly because of the impoverished circumstances that she lives in, and the whole metaphor of the tree growing in Brooklyn and how it's both a physical thing but also a representation of beautiful things growing in horrible places. It's just so well done, and I probably won't read her other books. I think she wrote 2 other novels, but none of them got the acclaim that this one did, because I just love this one so much. I kind of feel like I don't want to read the other 2 because it's just setting myself up to fail really and not enjoy them as much. But this was such a wonderful, wonderful read, and yeah, I think if you like Angela's Ashes, you will like this book. Then I'm moving on to a very hyped book. Well, currently hyped book. This is Transcendent Kingdom by... Okay, is it Yarjasi or Gyasi? I don't know. But I hadn't read it before, and this is about Gifty, a woman who has parents of Ghanaian heritage but lives in Alabama and is studying addiction or like through mice, and basically trying to help see if it's possible to control people's behaviours and change their behaviours, owing to her brother's battle with addiction himself, and also her mother's depression, I suppose, at what happens to her brother. It's a wonderful book because I think it's so nuanced. It could just be a family tale of the struggles with addiction and the dynamics within that, but it's so much more than that. It's also about science versus faith, which I think is handled so well, about Gifty's loss of faith while her mother still clings to it as a comfort. I feel like it was just very respectful of both feelings, and the way it describes how it feels to believe in religion. It was just so well thought out, and the pain of losing that and not feeling a sense of purpose or comfort through that, and her need to control or be able to have some sort of positive change through the science that she's doing is just so moving. And the way that you slowly learn what happened to her brother and how he fell into addiction and how her mother has got into the state that she's in, it's just so richly layered as a story. I did find the ending slightly abrupt, but I just think this is such a strong book, and I know it's in the final for the Women's Prize. I haven't read The Vanishing Half yet, so I'm not sure if this is my favourite, but if this won, I really wouldn't be mad. I think it's a beautifully written book, and I just couldn't pull it down as well. I read it so quickly. Then last but not least, we have The Lives of Lee Miller by Anthony Penrose, her son, and I know this is niche. If you don't care about Lee Miller, if you don't know who she is, Google her because she's amazing. But this was such a beautiful book. It had so many photographs I had never seen before, and I love black and white photography, and mainly her photographs, but also photographs of her friends had taken, because she had all these amazing autistic friends, and there was just so much about her life I didn't know, especially about her early life. I was much more aware of her work during World War II and as a model, but she just had this incredibly fascinating, slightly bohemian life, and there were some really funny anecdotes or interesting tales that I really enjoyed. I particularly enjoyed the one where she had a girlfriend who got beaten up by her boyfriend because he had a penchant for doing that before having sex. So then they lured him to a house, tied him up and beat him, and then he transferred to a different part of the country. And I thought that was amazing. So she was just really badass, and I love her, and it was just a beautifully put together book. So, it was just everything I wanted, and it made me so happy. And I love reading books with pictures. So this was my jam. So yeah, there we go. That wasn't the best description of that last book, especially, but those are my best books of the year so far. I wonder what I'll read next in the other half of the year. I wonder how many of these will make it to the end of year best books we will see. But let me know what the best book you've read this year is. Would love to know. Always up for more recommendations. But I will see you soon for Bookish Shenanigans. Bye!